I'm Eve Vigil. I'm the founder of the San Luis Obispo Botanical Garden, and we are here to talk about fire-safe gardening. And if you take a look around, there's our fire-safe garden sign, and we're going to go up a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about what makes a garden fire-safe. Come along with me. So, let's take a look over here. Let's pretend that this is your house. And the whole idea behind a fire-safe garden is to create a landscape around your house that hopefully, in the case of a wildfire, the wildfire will stop before it gets to your house. Of course, the landscape isn't everything, but it's one part of making your home potentially fire-safe. So, key elements in a fire-safe landscape. You must make some modifications to your landscape up to about 100 feet. So, if you look up the hill, do we see our 100-foot sign? I think we do. Yep. Did we get it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so now you get a sense of how far 100 feet is. Now, I realize in an urban situation, your backyard will not extend 100 feet. But this is primarily for people who live in the urban wildland interface, because that's where much of the damage from wildfires actually happens. So let's come over here and talk a little bit about the structure first. So we're standing in the patio of our home. And we have this wonderful explanatory sign here that talks about roofing. Obviously, you want a fire-safe roof, which probably means anything but wood shingles. The eaves need to be boxed in so the embers cannot enter your house from the outside and be sucked into your house, and literally it burns your house from the inside out. Your windows, of course, there are ways to harden windows, and any contractor can really help you with that. Decks, same thing as the eaves. The embers have a tendency to actually be sucked under the decks, and the fire will start below your house and eventually engulf the entire structure. Now, I happen to have a chance to see some of the wildfire burn areas in Monterey County a number of years ago. And one thing really, really struck me. There was one house that survived it was an entire block of devastated houses, completely burned down. One house survived. And the one thing I noticed, that person had an all succulent landscape around it. It was just absolutely striking. Everybody else lost their house. That one person did not. So, hooray for fire-safe landscaping. Let's talk a little bit more about it. Now remember, we talked about 100 feet. CAL FIRE basically is looking for people to create defensible space. Because if there's tall, burnable vegetation growing right up to your walls, CAL FIRE is not going to be able to save your house. So, what do? Defensible space has several zones. We have the critical zone, which is the first 30 feet away from your home. This is where you want the most fireproof, lowest, most succulent, best watered vegetation that you can plant. Now over here, because we do have, this is being San Luis Obispo County, we do have issues with water. So we have chosen to use all succulents in that first 30 feet. So, but there are other things you can do. If you are in an area where you do have plenty of water, you can certainly have a lawn. Now, of course, CAL FIRE also being the firefighters that they are, they will also tell you can simply clear your vegetation down to bare dirt for 100 feet. That used to be the recommendation. Nowadays, I think a lot of people basically weren't really satisfied with that. So they decided there is a better way. And fire safe landscaping basically does that. So basically, zone 1, the first 30 feet, you want succulent vegetation, well-watered vegetation, low-growing vegetation, spaces between vegetation, and all really low. Now, once you get into zone 2, that's between 30 and 100 feet. There you can start using a little bit taller shrubbery, but you want to space it out. You're trying not to create what's called a fire ladder, where basically one shrub catches fire and it's touching the next shrub and so on. So you want spacing between plants or groups of plants. It doesn't have to be a single plant, but you don't want to create a way for fire to hop from one shrub to another. So that goes up to about 100 feet. Beyond 100 feet, if you live out in the country, you should still pay some attention to what happens in that vegetation. The recommendation, again, if you have trees, you want to prune them up to about 6 to 10 feet. You also want to, again, prune your vegetation even beyond 100 feet. That hopefully does not create a fire ladder. So, but again, the restrictions get less and less as you get further and further from your house. So, come on up. Now we're going to look at some of the plants. Now, here we are. There's a number of plants here that we have throughout the garden, but primarily in the fire-safe garden, that meet the criteria for plants that are not as likely to carry fire. Again, any succulent is good. Now we have some really cute things right here. Lavender is a good choice. Erigeron, the seaside daisy, that's a good choice. The euphorbias, we have some really pretty euphorbias here in the botanical garden that are quite low and certainly would satisfy the criteria. Of course, your aeoniums, very much a succulent plant. Your aloes, again, beautiful. And aloes, you can actually get them in a variety of sizes, all the way from ground covers to almost trees. So with the proper spacing, you can use any and all of these plants to create a really attractive landscape and still feel pretty good about the fire safety of your garden. So let's walk up a little bit. So for a moment, I want to actually look down here. So this is very, very green. Now, here at the Botanical Garden, we water all of our plants once every 21 days in the summer. So this beautiful grass-like area right here, this is our substitute lawn. This is actually not a grass. It's a sedge. It's called Carex progressilis. So if you do have enough water, there's nothing wrong with using something like Carex progressilis. That would work very well. Another plant that would work well is this one right here, the torch lily. It looks like a torch, very appropriate for fire-safe landscaping. But the basic part of the plant, the leaves, really stay pretty low. It's within about 2 feet. So clumps of these in your fire-safe landscape will look absolutely beautiful and be totally appropriate for fire-safe use. Over here we have Chopsticks. That's Senecio mandriliski. That's one of the more unusual names here. Again, just a really, really good plant. Beautiful, just a stunning color that you could use. We mix them here with aloes, and as you see further up, we have the kangaroo paw, which is quite tall, but notice that we have considerable spacing between the taller plants. And if you look beyond that, the next slope, and we're going to walk up there, that slope is starting to have some plants that are a little bit taller, and they're in groupings, but again, we're maintaining a certain amount of spacing between them. Those are really some, I keep harping on these elements because to create this landscape, for it to actually be effective, a few of these concepts, if you apply them, really you can use almost any plant. As a matter of fact, I talked to one of the fire chiefs in our county, and I said, are there any plants that people absolutely should not use? And his answer really sort of surprised me, because he said, no, not really. It's all about how you use the plants. And that goes back to the succulents, to the spacing, to the pruning, the things that you can do to your plants, or with your plants, pardon me. You don't want to do it to your plants, but you want to do it with your plants and in order to create a fire-safe landscape. Now, can we turn around here and look at this particular ground cover here? Now, this is Ceanothus gloriosus, Heart's Desire. It's a specific ceanothus. It's a ground cover that is very, very low and stays, you know, this is just one of the survivors of the world. So even with relatively little water, look at the coverage of the slope. It's excellent for slopes. If you have that, it's great. Now, actually down here, well, let's see. We can kind of highlight, this is a plant I want to talk about because in a lot of fire-prone areas, you also don't necessarily have a lot of water. That's the case with us here. We have to be incredibly water thrifty here. So we're always looking for plants that are beautiful, do what we need it to do, and consume as little water as we can possibly get away with. So, Ceanothus hirstiorum. My understanding is it comes from the area of Hearst Castle. It's actually from a creek down there, I think. Ceanothus hirstiorum has been one of the most drought-resistant plants that we have here, other than succulents, of course. But I would highly recommend it. We have these plants that I just showed you. They're relatively new, but with virtually no irrigation, these plants have survived here. And not just that, they've actually thrived. So this is one of the plants that we watch and that we'll be using a lot more of. So notice up here we're starting to get a little bit taller plants, a little more massing of plants. And we are, by the way, outside of because you know our trail meanders, we're actually outside of the 100-foot thing here, but we're getting into it really quickly. So, we can look at the succulents. Eventually, this entire slope that you see here will eventually be covered in dudleas. It's a type of succulents, California native, and we have just started planting this area, and we're going to do a lot more. So, take a look. Baja Live Forever. Which, by the by, our botanical garden is all about Mediterranean climate zone plants. And did you know that halfway down to Baja California, it's still part of a Mediterranean climate zone? And remember, biological boundaries are not the same as political boundaries. So yes, the Baja Live Forever is a California Mediterranean climate zone plant. Let me see what we can look at. Here's another very, very long, oh, there's our 100 feet right there. There's our 100 feet. The Ceanothus centennial is a beautiful cultivar with the darkest purple flowers ever. And again, it stays low. That plant never gets above, what would I say, a foot? Again, a plant that you could use. And in combination, our whole idea here eventually is to have the dudleas on the slope because they tolerate this kind of miserable condition that we put them in, and the ceanothus and some of the other plants above, the ceanothus cascading down and meeting up with the dudleas. But they still have to grow a bit. So here we have introduced, this one may be a better choice right here. Here we've introduced one of the sages, and this is Salvia clevelandii. So Ah, they smell so good. You know, all about delicious California native scents. Lots of California native scents do have a delightful smell. So in addition to having a fire safe garden, you could also have a really sweet scented garden. So I think it's time for us to finish. If you have any questions, by all means contact us or go to slobg.org, or better yet, come and visit us here at the San Luis Obispo Botanical Garden and see for yourself. Thank you.